One kind of whale can dive almost 2 miles straight down into the ocean. That is deeper than 6 Eiffel Towers stacked one on top of the other. It can stay down there for over an hour, sometimes longer, without ever coming up for air. Then, it swims back to the surface, takes a few breaths, and gets ready to do the exact same dive all over again. That should not be possible. Humans can hold their breath for maybe 1 or 2 minutes before real trouble starts. This whale holds its breath for over an hour in freezing cold water under crushing pressure, far from any air at all. How does one single breath last that long? Most people would guess the whale must simply have huge lungs, much bigger than ours, able to hold a giant supply of air before diving down. Bigger lungs, more air, longer dive. That seems like the obvious answer. But that guess is wrong. This whale's lungs are not unusually large for its body size. In fact, right before a deep dive, the whale often breathes out first, letting most of the air leave its lungs instead of filling them up. If bigger lungs were the real secret, this would make no sense at all. So the air itself is not where this whale is storing its oxygen. Here is the real secret. Most of this whale's oxygen is not kept in its lungs. It is kept inside its blood and its muscles instead. This whale's blood carries an unusually large amount of a special substance that grabs onto oxygen and holds it tightly, almost like a sponge soaking up water. Its muscles are packed with a very similar substance too, letting the muscles themselves store extra oxygen, right where it will be needed most during a long, deep dive. This is a big part of why this whale's meat looks so much darker than the meat of most land animals. That dark colour comes from all the extra oxygen-holding substance packed inside the muscle itself. A muscle built this way is almost like a battery that has already been charged up before the dive even begins, ready to slowly release its stored oxygen over the next hour instead of needing a constant fresh supply the whole time. Because of this, the whale is not really diving on one single big gulp of air. It is diving on oxygen already packed away throughout its whole body, tucked safely inside its blood and its muscles before it even leaves the surface. This is much like the difference between carrying one big bottle of water on a hike or having water already stored in many smaller places all along your body. The second way holds far more in total, even if each single part looks smaller by itself. There is a second trick that makes this dive last even longer. Once the whale is deep underwater, its heart begins beating much slower than normal, sometimes just a few beats every minute. A slower heartbeat means the body burns through its stored oxygen much more slowly. The same way a car uses less fuel when driven gently instead of driven fast. This slower heartbeat is not something the whale has to think about or control on purpose. It happens automatically, almost like a switch flipping the moment the whale dives deep enough. Scientists believe this happens partly because of the cold water itself and partly because of signals sent out by the whale's own nervous system the instant it senses deep pressure building up around its body. Either way, the whale does not need to slow down and relax on purpose to save oxygen. Its body already knows exactly what to do the moment a deep dive begins. At the same time, the whale's body starts sending most of its remaining blood and the oxygen inside it toward only the most important organs, mainly the brain and the heart itself. Other body parts, like the muscles used for swimming, are allowed to run on very little oxygen for a while, or sometimes almost none at all. This means the whale is not sharing its limited oxygen supply evenly across its whole body. It is choosing carefully, sending the most oxygen to the parts it cannot survive without, and asking the rest of the body to simply wait its turn. There is one more piece to this puzzle, and it solves a very different kind of danger. At such deep, crushing pressure, dissolved gases inside the body can sometimes turn dangerous, especially if a diving animal comes back up to the surface too quickly. This whale's ribcage is unusually flexible, built almost like a folding cage instead of a stiff, solid frame. As the whale dives deeper, this flexible ribcage allows its lungs to collapse safely inward under the pressure, squeezing air out of certain risky areas before that trapped air can cause harm. This same flexible design also seems to help protect the whale on the way back up, allowing gases inside the body to be handled more safely than a stiff, rigid ribcage ever could. This same basic set of tricks, oxygen-rich blood, slower heartbeats, and careful blood sharing, shows up in other deep-diving ocean mammals too, just in smaller amounts. Seals that dive for many minutes at a time use a lighter version of the exact same system. Their heart rates drop noticeably during a dive, and their blood also carries extra oxygen-holding substances, just not quite as much as this deepest diving whale carries. The pattern is the same across many diving mammals. The deeper and longer the dive, the more of these tricks an animal seems to need. It is a little like comparing a short walk to a very long hike. A short walk barely needs any planning at all. You can just go. But a long, hard hike needs more water, more food, and more careful pacing along the way. Animals that only dive for a minute or two barely need any of these special tricks. But an animal diving for over an hour at crushing depth needs nearly every single one of them working together, just to make the trip possible at all. Zooming out, this shows something important about how bodies can be built around one single extreme challenge. This whale did not solve deep diving with one clever trick alone. It combined several different solutions together: oxygen stored throughout the body, a slower, careful heartbeat, smart blood sharing, and a flexible rib cage, all working together at the exact same time. Removing even one of these parts would likely make a dive this deep and this long impossible. So somewhere far below the surface of the ocean, in total darkness, under pressure that would crush almost anything built the wrong way, a massive whale glides slowly through the deep water, calm and steady. Its heart beats slowly. Its stored oxygen quietly runs down minute after minute, and when the moment finally comes, it turns upward, rising gently back toward the surface, toward one single breath of fresh air, and toward the very next deep dive already waiting for it.